Hey, welcome to Coach's Corner, everybody. Thanks for watching Four-Wheel Drive segment here on Wednesday nights. As you can see, I'm representing Billy Pendock.
Yeah!
Big Billy, defensive tackle, Liverpool High School, Syracuse, Orange Maine, Cowboys, Ottawa Rough Riders, and so much more. And to my underneath, below, the Blazer, Blaze Winner.
Yeah! Me? Yeah!
There's Blaze.
Yeah.
Syracuse teammate with Billy. Part of the Four-Wheel Drive, Timmy Green and Jamie Kimmel, the other two of the Four-Wheel Drive. We do this segment on Wednesday nights. Blazer played 10, 12 years in the NFL.
Yeah.
Overachiever. You can see some of his uniforms in the background. Folks, here on Coach's Corner, we try to inspire and educate the mind to think, the heart to feel, and the body to act. That's right. Coming up on the show, we're going to talk about positions. I played safety for 20 years, coached for 20 years, and coached cornerbacks, but safety was my natural position. So we're going to talk about the characteristics of a position. We're going to tackle safety, and you guys are both defensive linemen, so we're going to talk about that. All right. So it's position of a safety here. A safety has to have good feet. He has to be quick, like a cornerback, because he has to cover man-to-man, those wide receivers. And safety lines up all over the field, kind of unique position. He ends up in more places than any other player on the field. For example, he could be on the line of scrimmage, or he could be 15 yards off the ball. He might be blitzing the A-gap between the center and the guard, or he could be coming off the edge. The safety has deep coverage most of the time. He has a responsibility to cover 18 yards a lot of times, a third of the field, cover 3, they call it 3 deep. And so, like, between the hashes for high school is 18 yards wide, so he's got between the hashes. There's a lot of responsibility. Safety also makes secondary calls and has to successfully communicate these calls to 3 or 4 other DBs and the linebackers. So we're going to talk a little bit more about communication in a second. But, guys, you have to have good feet as a DB. If you take one false step, it could mean the difference between 6 points and nothing. So it's critical. I used to tell my guys, you have a lot of responsibility back there. You better be able to accept it. How important is feet for a defensive lineman?
Go ahead, Billy. You start out.
I think in all 3 levels of defense, you've got some form of balance and footwork that's got to be covered. So I mean, I look at playing defense as, the line obviously is the first point of attack. Your linebackers are the next point, and your DBs are the support for those two areas. But and what we did up front is, a lot of that stuff was covered in fundamentals, and I remember my biggest memory of when I started football, and I started at an older age. I didn't start playing until my freshman, sophomore year in high school, but everything was dictated back then. The way the game was played for us was dictated with that short 6-inch step. I know Blaze probably remembers this.
Yes.
Everything was based on that for us up front. Even if we were running a stunt or whatever we were doing, we were taking that short read step. And
that's a read step. Yeah, that's a read step, right? They call it a read step.
A read step. If you took a longer step, you might have got caught in the middle of a step, so you didn't have 2 feet on the ground. So that's why that step was very important. But
yeah, it's all about timing. Blaze, what other footwork is critical for?
Well, Ken, from 40 years of martial arts, which I learned more than any other. I learned more about body mechanics from martial arts senseis, especially our Citio Avicula in California. I learned more from them than any coach I was ever with. And what they would always say to me is that power comes from the ground, through the feet. And I always remember that. And because the foundation is how your foot is in relationship to the ground.
Mhm.
And if you want speed, there's certain things that have to happen underneath the foot. If you want ability, there's certain things that have to happen. And the general rule of thumb was, hey, a short 6-inch step would maintain a triangle base that was so important to change of direction and stability.
Mhm.
And it would force you into a better confrontation with the old lineman. So the power coming from the ground,
Mhm.
it was a thought that finally occurred to me that you have three options as a D lineman for steps. You have a long step that gives you great coverage, but you have horrible stability. You have a short step that gives you great stability, but you don't really cover a lot of ground.
Right.
And then you have a step in place, which really doesn't do anything in a game of aggression and a game of attacking someone,
Mhm.
controlling gaps. So the base was looked upon a little bit differently than what a coach of football would teach you, because I found that I needed to be more educated. So the martial arts teacher educated me much more thoroughly than the X and O master of football.
Wow, that's interesting. That's interesting. Billy talked about balance and agility. I mean, you talked about body mechanics and power coming from the ground. That's as a DB, we had to be light on our feet, so we had to be so quick that our feet mattered how it touched the ground. Billy,
think about this. Like to Blaze's point, power from the ground. We other than Blaze, I mean, we've all I know I play a lot of golf. All of you play a lot of golf. You watch these guys play on Sundays. They play on a tour. They're hitting that ball, and all that power, if you look at it, is coming from the ground. I mean, they're swinging that golf club and driving off the ground to make that long drive. So
right.
it's a great point.
Really,
It's a great point.
You look at MMA. You look at any sort of boxing. You look at any sort of even basketball. The ball coming off your hand. I mean, if you really think about it, God put us in a position where our eyes are at the top, near the top of our heads, and our feet are at the furthest distance from our eyes. And that communication between brain and feet is critical to mastering your profession. And you have to see it, you have to understand it, and you have to alter the steps or change your entries. And that is very difficult for some people. And a lot of times what the young player does is he relies upon the mechanical structure of move my feet short steps, and this will help me. But he fails to understand what are you seeing to move your feet? What are you watching? So we try to give them cues like watch the ball.
Yeah, eyes. Yeah, we're going to talk about eyes here in a second. A safety also has to be really football smart and able to communicate. Safety makes all the coverage calls. And as a coach, I relied on the smartest guy out there to make all the other DBs make sure they were playing the same coverage on every play. A DB has to get all four DBs consistently practice communication. I used the color and hand signals to represent a coverage. For instance, cover 3 was red. Every coach uses hand signals to ensure the call is received because it can get loud in stadiums and teammates can't hear each other a lot of the times. So you have to have hand signals. The safety has to be smart and able to communicate that stuff. So he has to have good eyes, all right? So the safety also has to have great eyes, all right? A good peripheral vision. He has to see things coming at him without actually turning his head and looking at them. Okay, the peripheral, he has to be able to judge, and I'm asking, what is Coach talking about when I talk about this? Well, you can look at something with your eyes and still see stuff out of the peripheral. You can do it right now, okay? So you're doing it. You don't even realize that right now we're looking peripheral, and we see movement, and we have to react. Now, some people can see color, speed, light, and other things peripherally. Others have a tough time. Some of us are better than others at it. I've seen players that can't respond to movement that's 20 feet away from them, and others can respond to movement 40 feet away from them. So eyes, peripheral communication, and smartness. How does those three things relate to D linemen?
Well, let's understand one thing. Let's understand one thing for sure. A lot of times we talk about the physical, but we must talk about the psychological. You understand what affects vision is your thoughts. If you're angry, you see things different than if you're a happy, relaxed person. Things don't flow nearly as easily. Movement doesn't occur nearly as easily. You become blinded by nothingness based upon a certain state of mind. You have to be clear in mind to move body fluidly. I mean, that's a Bruce Lee thing, man.
Right.
You want to move and flow like water, you must interpret interruptions the right way. And the only way you interpret them the right way is by having a tranquil state of mind. If you're well prepared, most likely your state of mind is tranquil.
Right.
So vision lies in preparation.
And
wow. That's interesting.
You talk about that. You heard the term tunnel vision.
Absolutely.
You guys heard that before. That's more of a police term than a football or sports term. But that's looking and seeing, especially when the shit goes down and it goes down the wrong way.
Right.
You're looking right down that one tunnel. You don't see nothing outside of your periphery.
Oh, so you got to have tunnel vision.
That's a great example, isn't it? That's a great example of a term used, tunnel vision, but it's driven by a circumstance and a series of thoughts. And again, it's very important for people, young people, to understand you're uptight on the field, you're not going to see much. If you're more relaxed and prepared, you're going to see a lot more and be able to react much more easily through what you interpret through your eyes.
Awesome. All right, let's broach the next characteristic. Safety has to have great hands. You got to work your hands. Good ball skills enable safeties to break up passes and get interceptions. Coach Nick Saban once said the most important characteristic that a DB can have is how he high points the football. He has the potential to make game-changing plays. And in football, every football game, there are only about 6 to 8 big plays in every game. And during my first game in the NFL, I was lucky enough to tip a pass and get an interception. I caught 2 more, had a pick 6. And that I always prided myself on ball skills. Ball skills are the most important characteristic of a DB. Guys, how important is hands? And to a D lineman, I know wrestling helps. Martial art will help your hand movement. Guys, talk a little bit about that, Blazer.
Well, again, this is my area, so we have to keep it short and brief, but it goes on a long way. I mean, there are weapons all over your body, and your hands are on the top of your lower body. They represent a certain action-reaction sequence. The weapons are the palm of the hand, the wrist, creating hooks, forearm, creating surfaces, the elbow, front, middle, back, the shoulder, the upper. I mean, you have weapons. And what you have to do is sort of understand, hey, what is the range that is optimum to use that weapon? I mean, we know, Billy knows from hunting, hey, I'm not going to shoot at that deer when he's out of range.
Right.
We try to teach young people that. I challenge more coaches than ever before. Why don't you talk about what's important? See, you're listening to a man who put in 40 years of studying martial arts. 40 years. I was the guru that changed the surface by saying to Randy White and to Andre Tippett, what are you studying? And they would communicate that, hey, hands are important. Now, you imagine back in the 80s, the hands were hardly talked about. You know what we talked about? Ballet. what was talked about, things that were a player could not relate to. But now almost every other TikTok page on football, D-line play, is talking about hands. But they failed to understand that they're all about what? Using weapons at a certain range and an optimal way. So these weapons, your arms, your hands, your elbows, and these are things that are majorly important. I mean, you look at Von Miller, you look at Aaron Donald, you look at the players that played and the players that are playing now. Oh my Lord, man! It's a game of you do this, I do that, and then you put together what combinations. We did this at Ohio State. We did this at Michigan State. What we did is we put each D lineman had to put together three movements off of the offensive lineman in every one rush. Now, you think about that. What does that mean? A chop, dig, long arm. There's three movements. Most want to do one and done, and that is not fighting. Fighting is putting together combinations with the weapons.
Right. Awesome stuff. As a matter of fact, Von Miller and those D linemen, they even have their own camp now. So they have a mind. What do you call? They have a think tank for defensive linemen now.
The bottom line is, if they had any balls, they would contact a person like me. If they had any guts, they would take me. But their egos are so big. You talked about a private narcissism. Their egos are so big, they have a tendency to push others away because, it takes away from me being the man. What's most important is how we teach these young people to do it right early as possible. As early as possible. I just saw a kid that I'm training up in Virginia the other day, and he had 3 sacks. Why? He did it right. And it was that easy. It wasn't like, well, I'm going to fight the guy, and I'm going to fight the pole, and I'm going to throw him. I'm sorry, Billy, I'm taking a lot of time, but this is my area, man. You talk about mastering 5 disciplines in 40 years, 5 black belts in 40 years. I have a right to talk about this the way I want to. And if any of these people want to talk to me and come through my door and say, well, let's try it, I'll be more than happy to cripple them. I'll be more than happy to put them on their knees. These motherfuckers know nothing because I watch them each and every day, and they infuriate me.
Yeah. Oh, and I see
these things like a fighter does.
I see college and NFL DBs that do stuff that I would never allow a high school kid to do. Billy?
Yeah. Now listen, Blaze.
Sorry, Billy.
That's great points. Everything he talked about is exact, right on. And I know he's passionate about it because he's trained it and he's taught it for so long. Now, let's backtrack a little bit. Before you're learning all those techniques, you've got to build up these things right here. And the way that's done is what I used to do with my guys, we put jerseys over the bar, jersey pull-ups, everything from the elbow to the fingers we work on. I don't do any bicep curls for this muscle. Everything is a forearm and a functional movement, which is this and this. But without that strength from elbow to hand, all that other stuff is great to talk about and to train, but you need that power in those digits and those forearms and those wrists. That's vital to the start of learning those techniques that Blaze is talking about.
All right, so these critical characteristics that we talk about, and we're talking about eyes sometimes, and we're talking about fingers and hands. How can you improve the strength? Well, you can. You can do both. You can improve your eye muscles. That's being done now. And Billy just talked about how to do the hands. I used to roll bars in my fingers. I just would roll my fingers, man. To get there's hand squeezers that you can do. There's a lot of things that you can do to improve the eyes and fingers and hands.
Paulie, with the hands, it's functional movement that's going to make your hands, wrists, and fingers stronger. It's not just grabbing a bar and doing wrist rolls. When are you going to do that on the football field? Blaze, what do we
You have
do
to
every
grab.
time we
You have to
tackle?
grab jerseys.
You're grabbing, you're pulling, you're pushing, but and that's functional movement.
We also have to be, Billy, but we also have to be aware of the common striking principles. I always say this to a young person: what do you find at the end of a bullet? You find a tip. What do you find on a sharp blade? You have a sharp edge. What do you need when you make a impression on an offensive lineman? You have to understand what is hitting that surface first. Is it your palm, which is dense and hard and shaped like a wedge? Or is it your fingertips reaching to absorb? If you want to be a striker, you ever see these guys jab? You ever see them jab? I mean, they jab through something. You ask a player, are you jabbing, striking through something or to some surface? And there's also a number of targets. So I agree with Billy. There's fundamentals that have to be understood with eyes, feet, hands. And you build it from what, Billy? From the base up, obviously.
Exactly.
The base up is most important, like George O'Leary did and all the other coaches I was ever around.
Hey,
it's foundation, no matter how you look at it.
Those are great points, and we're gonna dive into that in this very next paragraph, this very next subject. You don't go to something; you go through something. That's another basis of martial arts. Bruce Lee and other martial artists understand. And I, as a DB coach, when I practice tackling, I would do it every single day. You go through the guy. You ain't going to go to him, guys. I want you to end up on the other side of that guy, and then you're made sure you take his ass down. Okay? Let's talk about that. That brings us to the characteristic that a safety must have is the ability to tackle. Okay? A good tackler possesses another subset of characteristics. Let's start with the aggression. In Pop Warner, middle school, high school, college, even to a certain extent, the pros, there exists a varying degree of physicality. In other words, at every level, you can identify the big hitters. Big hitters are not a dime a dozen. They're hard to find. To be a good tackler, along with aggression, you need technique. And that technique used by a safety will change, okay? There's different tackling techniques that a safety has to know. And along with this aggression, okay, the technique used by a safety, it depends on the situation. For example, when an open field tackle requires a different technique than approaching a runner heading to the sidelines, okay? If he's running straight at you, you have to break down, okay, get square, and be able to stay square in a ready position with your feet a certain distance apart and your shoulders in order to go and attack on his upfield movement. Now, when a running back is like running towards the sideline, okay, you got him pinned up against that sideline. Well, the worst thing you can do is take the inside route, have him run through your arm, and he's off to the races for a touchdown. So I teach him to get your head across. They have to run over your body. They're not going to run over your body, okay?
Let me stop you right there for 1 second, Trip. When you said that, hold on. I went to a high school game here in New York last weekend. I watched one of the teams teaching the sideline tackles. They were warming up. They're teaching here now in New York State what's called hawk tackling. Yeah. Their head is no longer in front when they tackle. They're teaching head behind.
Yeah.
And no more head across in front.
Yeah.
What?
Exactly.
What? How can you play the game of football improperly?
What the game is heading toward is for the defensive player to be the absorber rather than the blow delivery person. Then that's what they ultimately think will prevent offensive injuries.
Exactly.
And you're right, but it will lead to what? Soft tissue injuries on the defensive side. But the defensive side is not important anymore. All you have to do is watch the games and interference calls. And that, Paulie, that Trip, that should have just upset you so much to see what's happening. But it's really a game of, hey, we need the hawk tackle to preserve what? The running back, the quarterback, the receiver, whoever has the ball, we need to preserve him. So we're going to put the head behind so he has the ability to what? Continue to run, because it ends up being what, Billy? An arm tackle.
Right.
That's what it is, an arm tackle.
That 100%. I know, Paulie, I didn't know if you knew about it or not, but that's what they're teaching here in New York.
Wow. I couldn't coach. I couldn't coach the wrong way. Oh my gosh. All right, guys. Good show today, man.
Thanks a lot, man.
Today.
Hey, one last thing I want to say. The intensity coming from Billy, Trent, and myself is the ingredient to success. It's called a level of confidence and a level of intensity. And people like O'Leary would bring it out of you. People like Gunter Cunningham, people like Gray Blosh at the Packers brought it out of me every day. They knew how to push buttons. So if you're a coach, yeah, technique is important, but you better have the right frame of mind, and you better know how to bring out that fearless approach from one of the players you're working with.
All right. I'll tell some Coach Bryant stories starting next week, then, because I've been holding back, but Coach Bryant was something else when it came to physicality and intensity.
Okay.
Let me tell you, I had O'Leary and Coach Bryant in holy macaroni, spaghetti, and pasta school. Yeah. They didn't play around. You either got on that road or you get off the road and go somewhere else.
Yeah. Great story.
Great. Thanks, brother.
Hey, good seeing you guys.
Good seeing
you
guys.
Love you guys. Take care. Have a great day.
Okay, you guys take care.
See ya. All right, another deal of four-wheel drive here at Coach's Corner. Yeah, that's right. I was Billy runs a conditioning business, as I did in the past, both strength and conditioning freaks as we were in Blazer, 40 years in martial arts. Anyway, I want to give a shout out Timmy Green. There's Timmy. Jamie Kimmel, I wish you guys could join us sometime. We're working on Timmy Green. Jamie, we're working on finding you, buddy. So if anybody knows, just let them know. If you like the show, share it, like it. Appreciate it. Stay tuned for these great messages. Without my sponsors, this show just wouldn't be possible. Have a great sports night, everybody. So long.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
My name is Steve Reynolds. I'm the manager and owner of Cordova Lanes, and we help keep your mind out of the gutter. Cordova Lanes is part of the community of Pensacola. Being here for 43 years, we've entertained more people than any other bowling center in the city. We self-fund for a living. Cordova Lanes is located at 2111 Airport Boulevard in Pensacola, behind Cordova Mall. Come on out and see us at Cordova Lanes Bowling Center. Thank you.
75 years of service and high tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than the simple painted brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait. Wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
That's you trying to fix the plumbing yourself to save a few bucks. Doing things yourself doesn't always end well. The same goes for insurance. That's why Auto Owners works with local independent agents who tailor coverage to meet your needs and offer discounts for life, home, car, and business insurance. Because sometimes you need a professional to get the job done right. That's simple human sense.